Done wrong, 'cause I broke the skies that shine above. But I can't live without you, and it's hard to breathe when you're not near. But I can't lie here beside you, 'cause you're still my soul when you leave. Set me free, babe. Set me free. Set me free, babe. I need someone to hold me, wrap their arms and embrace the air I breathe. Now I can't make love me, baby, if you don't, but I stay in love with you. Oh yes, 'cause I can't live without you, and it's hard to breathe when you're not near. Oh yes it is, but I can't lie here beside you, 'cause you're still my soul when you leave. Set me free, baby. Oh, set me free. Set me free, baby. Lord, set me free. Come tonight. I can't live without you, and it's hard to breathe when you're not near. Oh yes it is, but I can't lie beside you, 'cause you're still my soul when you leave. Lord, set me free, baby. Set me free, baby. Set me free, baby. Oh, you set me free, baby. Oh, please, you set me free, baby. Oh, please, you set me free, baby. You set me free, baby. Oh, please, you set me free.
You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
and Keith Cheatham, coming to you this week live with another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. That's right. Oh, we've got another fantastic week here in news. In fact, what's interesting is I'm actually bringing back a headline from last week, believe it or not. That's right. I wanted to bring back the fact that the box office is in a slump. So as much high hopes as we had for Tenet.
You don't say. Well, it's the only major release
I
theaters
know.
have. Like, the only one.
And it pretty much everybody was waiting on a limb to see if that would be worth bringing everything else out, and doesn't look like it. So we'll talk about
Slim
that.
Pickens.
We do have another review of a film that is newer, did not release in theaters, again, straight to streaming.
It released in theaters overseas. Well, and just in the United Kingdom, for whatever reason, I don't know.
I figured it was only in Poland or wherever.
Yeah. What was the
I forgot.
Schlovdeck or something?
It's like
I
Schlump
can't
something.
remember.
It's yeah.
But yeah, I mean, maybe it's that one. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the only other one. We've got a review of that. We've also got our Vices segment that's coming up this week, which we're talking about think about all the news stories out there and all the things that you find in your feed. It's like every day.
Yeah.
You're constantly just
Inundated
on alert
with something
and inundated.
new.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's like we're talking about staying in the know, and how up to date do you have to be in this 2020? Oh gosh, and just what else is going to break that's just going to be a disaster? Everybody's on waiting on
It ain't
pins and
over
needles.
yet.
But of course, let's just dive right into it. With our review, like we do every single week here on the Red Moon Podcast. But you know what? I'm going to do something a little different.
Uh-oh.
I'm just going to throw it out there, okay?
I'm waiting.
If you have any questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, you can email us at rmpodcast@redmoonproductions.com. Throwing it out there right at the top of the show. How do you feel about that?
It just rolled right off your tongue.
Just rolled
perfectly.
right off? I mean,
Roll.
It sounded great.
what was that email again? Do you guys know?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
Sean,
Oh, I know.
What was it?
It's RMPodcast@redmoonproductions.com.
Huh.
That was fantastic, Sean. I don't
I
think I
like-
could
I
have done
liked
it
it.
any better. All right, guys. So send it there. All right, let's head on to our review then of An American Pickle. The following is a review by Keith Cheatham. While COVID still proves to be devastating to theaters, production companies continue turning to ulterior means for distributing their films and making money. While studios are mostly holding on tight to their major blockbusters in hopes that some normalcy will return, many of the smaller releases are making their way to streaming services and video on demand. One such film, An American Pickle, while enjoying a small theatrical release in the UK, has found its home on Warner Bros. Streaming service HBO Max. While never destined to be a massive blockbuster, An American Pickle has enjoyed modest success on HBO Max, with favorable reviews. Starring Seth Rogen, who plays a dual role of Herschel and Ben Greenbaum, An American Pickle is the story of Herschel, a Jewish immigrant from the year 1919, who, while working in a pickle factory, falls into a vat of pickles and is perfectly preserved for 100 years, when he is found and awakened in present day. His only surviving relative, Ben, is an aspiring app developer working on BoopBop, an app that tells users which companies are the most ethical. Herschel, who upon immigrating to America with his wife, vowed that one day their family would be powerful and successful. However, despite Herschel's initial beliefs, Ben isn't the success he hoped his family would become. After having a falling out, Herschel decides to start his own pickle company and prove he can be a bigger success than Ben. The film, from its very start, establishes itself as an offbeat and off-the-wall comedy, showcasing the poverty-stricken town Herschel once lived in to his perfect preservation via pickle brine. Perfectly explained by science, and beloved by everyone, the film's quirky humor is fun, but ultimately hit or miss. Where the story is strongest is in the themes of family, tradition, religion, and the meaning of true success. Through Ben and Herschel's feud driven by both's desire to honor their family, we see a clear contrast of old values versus new ones, and why change is good, but honoring and not forgetting the past is equally important. An American Pickle has a lot of heart, and it's this that drives the film and raises it above the sum of its parts. Its themes are strong and important ones, but the film often lacks subtlety and raw emotion. The over-the-top antics are often smartly done and self-referential, but we are rarely offered a contrasting moment of pause to allow more poignant themes to sink in. The feud between Ben and Herschel, while deep in the theme, starts off very superficial and accelerates at a pace that is hard to believe.
with the two harboring animosity towards one another so extreme I wasn't quite sure how they got there, other than the extreme measures taken against each other where needed to form the social commentary. The film, while genuinely humorous and well-intending, just isn't as deep as it wants to be. Other films with similar themes and motifs find a balance between the bizarre and emotional. Films like Big Fish or Stranger Than Fiction offer bizarre, unbelievable events paired with powerful human emotion to deliver off-kilter comedies. An American Pickle is in the same vein as these films, but lands just shy of the emotion needed to truly drive it home. It's a good movie that will make you laugh and still has something very important to say. It just doesn't always say it well. I give An American Pickle 3 out of 4 stars.
And there you have it. Nicely reviewed there by, of course, Mr. Keith Cheatham,
Yes.
who's probably a little tired right now. That's right.
I
I
have
had
to
to read the
say-
review for you, but
You did, and I appreciate that. I love the music. I just wanted to say that right
Yeah.
off the start. I really love the musical Fiddler on the Roof, and I like
it reminded you of
just
that.
Jewish culture. Even though I'm not Jewish, I just Jewish culture in general is always something that like I've always respected and enjoy seeing, and like the music and such, and like that musical Fiddler on the Roof is one of my favorites. So hearing that music like throughout the whole film, like the soundtrack, I really enjoyed. So I was like,
They should definitely play that at your bar mitzvah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I do
or
wanna
your
say-
wedding when you're breaking the plate.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
you know?
So I will say that is one thing that I did greatly enjoy about the movie.
I think that's Greek. That's not Jewish.
It's probably
Yeah.
not.
That's
Yeah.
I mean, hey, now look,
not
who
the
says you
original
can't be a
thing.
Jew and be Greek?
True, but yeah, I'm pretty sure Sean's right.
I think
that
that's
is Greek.
yeah.
We got all our cultures mixed up here.
Just you.
We're just
Yeah.
look.
No,
we're-
I said it first.
Oh,
so.
did you?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. If we're going to offend, we're going to offend multi-ethnically, okay?
Absolutely.
No, we're not appropriating anything appropriately.
Not at all. But yes, that's right. So 3 out of 4 stars.
Yes.
Let's talk about it. Because, Sean, I know you particularly love the film.
I did.
And I
Yeah.
actually think we're probably going to be a little bit diverse.
I think
Okay.
I think
But-
all of us landed in different spots.
in
for
different
this
spots.
one.
Okay.
But,
So-
Sean, let's start with you because I know you did. It struck a chord with you. quite a
Right.
bit.
Yeah. I have always had a thing with father-son tales or anything that has to do with family, especially when it comes to do with different generations. So there were so many parts of this movie that stood out to me in that regard because you've got this young guy who's basically being introduced to his great-great-grandfather, wasn't it?
Great
Yeah.
grandfather.
Or was his great-grandfather?
Great-grandfather.
Yeah.
It's
He's
only
only
100
one
years.
generation.
Yeah.
It was 100
Yep.
years difference, but to see the difference in the culture that they come from, the difference in how they earn money and how they spend money.
Oh, yeah.
And I really felt like the tradition aspect was what really struck a chord with me because I'm a firm believer in tradition and not abandoning it. It can be changed and it can be adapted, but never abandoned.
Right.
And that was one of the things that this movie did for me. I gave it 3.5 out of 4, by the way. But there were so many moments that I agree that they failed to really get you in the feels as well as I think they could have.
On the
But there
cusp.
were so many
Right on the
moments that
cusp.
got me right there. And then the end of the film did draw a tear.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just the religious side of me that I was just kind of moved by the fact that at the end he's finally willing to say, if you want to pray, that'd be okay. And he bows his head and closes his eyes too.
Yeah.
And I really liked that because he respected his elder. He respected the tradition
Right.
that he came from.
Right.
And it's the tradition of his family, whether he had ever known it or not.
Yeah.
And that was one of the main themes from the movie that really stood out to me, but also just the work ethic of Herschel and how I think that was his name, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and how he shows some of that work ethic to Liam. It's we don't have that today. I think young people today just don't have the same idea of a job and the purpose of a job. Now it's more, I'm going to go to work, I'm going to work my 8 hours, and then I'm going to go spend it. And he came from, I'm going to work all day and all night, and I'm going to make pennies, and I'm using that to grow my family and to move to a better place and to have a great success. His main thing, Herschel's main thing, was to create a success that would carry on for generations.
Right.
Because he wanted the best for his family 100 years down the road. And to get 100 years down the road coming out of a pickle vat, which is like, I liked how you compared it to Big Fish.
Yeah.
Because that is, and I never drew that comparison when I was watching it, but now that I hear it, I'm like, yeah, it is kind of a big fish tale.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big pickle. Like, I mean, that's actually one of the things that stood out too was the title, because it is just kind of an off tale.
Yeah.
But the fact that he
It's like
shows
American Tail, American Tail, but with a pickle.
Pickle.
So an American pickle.
Yeah.
I love it.
But to have him show up 100 years later and see how the success that he wanted for his family may not be visible, but then by the end of the film, I feel like Liam does kind of come around.
Yeah.
And it was one of the things that that he says in the movie. He says it's never too late to do something completely different.
Yeah.
And that really stood out to me because it's true. By the end of the film, you see that Liam, it wasn't too late for him to finally
Which it's funny
try to
'cause,
change
I mean,
and do something different.
That even in of itself is kind of more like the culture of today anyway. You know, it is about YOLO. It's about let's do something different.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, one thing you could do differently is be traditional.
Yeah,
You know, and it's
right.
like because there's so many people who are
Go
trying
back
to find
to your roots a little bit.
right. And I'll admit that was the one part of the film that really touched me to the core was I love the, you know, in typical, you know, Seth Rogen fashion, he, you know, kind of plays his strengths in terms of, you know, off-ball comedy. Not as off-ball as you've seen him in other films.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was a little bit of a disappointment. Not because I wanted him to see go crazy, like Pineapple Express or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But I did want to see, I guess, there were just moments where I felt like either the comedy didn't go far enough or the touching moments didn't go far enough. Like,
Yeah.
they were always on the cusp. And I don't know if that was just because, again, it wasn't directed by Rogen. It was directed by Brandon Troust, I think was his name.
Yeah.
And also, I think maybe because maybe Rogen's playing both parts. But again, a good director is going to see those angles from both those sides and I think try to get more out of it. And but I did love, you know, the dichotomy between the two characters. And, of course, even just the idea of the app that the one is creating, I thought it was funny because – you know, here he is, like you kind of stated. It's like, well, he's just spending all this time on this app, and they kind of mock him and make fun of him, like, what kind of font color is he going to choose?
Yeah.
And all this depends on that. And then, of course, they just easily, you know, it's so
Shrug it
submissive.
off,
And shrug, and like, yeah, we don't need to worry about that. Or it just becomes a situation where it's like, no, we're not going to take your app, which sucks because you could see he puts, you know, it comes out later in the film that there's a little bit more to this app, and that's what I liked was the subtlety. In I know Keith already looking like you're talking this part down. I actually liked the kind of draw that it made, where it showcased. Okay, there was this kind of tragic moment in his life that made this connection. There was a little bit more invested here than just what Herschel drew from it or criticized it for.
Yeah.
And
Right.
also, I think a little bit more to him and what ultimately brought him full circle in the end.
Yeah.
But ultimately, just so much of the movie fell short for me on those. Just even I can even understand the part where it's like the pickle brine, and I thought that was
that
quirky.
was great.
And honestly,
Yeah.
the funny part where they first bring him out and he's just sitting there in a room full of reporters, and literally the sound and the volume drops down, and it's like, in the narration just simply says, it's like, and he explained how science had made this happen, and everybody agreed,
And everybody agreed.
and then it
It's
goes
like,
back
oh,
to the
yeah.
reporters and they're like, oh, okay,
Yeah, and I love
I love that.
Yeah.
I loved it. I was like, okay, that's not this kind of movie. We're not going into Tenet. You know, this is not
right.
Christopher Nolan explains how black holes work. You know, and I like that.
That's what I
part.
wanted more of, is
Yes,
stuff like that
exactly.
contrasting with the emotion. And I felt like you had moments like that, but then they didn't back up enough of the, like, they had the emotional parts. Like, I loved the way it ended. I agree with Sean that it was good, but I wanted more throughout the film to really
to build
that
that
moment
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
I felt like they played the rivalry up the most rather than the emotional
Yes.
parts.
I
Agreed.
agree with that. It was way too much.
The rivalry was fine, but like I said in my review, is that there were certain parts like okay, Ben calling the health department, that I was fine with. But when it got to so far as like Herschel getting deported and all this stuff, I was like, how did we get to this point?
Yes.
It's like I understand
Yes.
like the jealousy between the two and them both wanting to be successes, and both of them in their own way are trying to honor their family, even though Herschel doesn't see that at the time.
Right.
It's
The
not
viewer
till
doesn't
later.
really see it
Yeah.
either.
Yeah, they don't
And that
see
was
it
one
either.
of the things that turned for me.
And that's why I love the idea behind Boop Bop and the reveal with that.
Yeah,
I just
I
hated
did
the
too.
name. I was like, I
Yeah.
wish
I did too.
Yeah.
I did too.
think
We could have come up with something a little bit better.
Like,
Yeah.
it's still like I agree. Like I get what they're going for that to be this off the wall name, but they still could have done something weird and quirky that would have made more sense with the reveal. Because when they revealed it, I was like, when he like Boop and Bop, like I don't know.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I know kids
Beep,
come up
boop.
with some weird names, but
Yeah.
I'm just like,
Well, and but actually, to go back to a point you were just making about the tie-in and how, I mean, for me it was the kind of the focus of the movie quickly became them trying to get one over on the other.
Yes.
and that was the part where it did kind of. And honestly, I'll be. To be fair, it's only an hour and a half. It's not
Yeah.
a long
yeah,
movie.
it is a short movie.
And I honestly think it could have got with another 20 minutes.
yeah.
With the more depth in there and without the focus on them trying to get one over on each
Yeah.
other, you could have literally made that a quick montage. And of course, it not getting as completely grandiose as being export.
Well, it's based on a short story, so it's one of those things where I feel
true.
like
It could have
like,
been-
the short story like probably may have been like in its nature with being written, it could have been a lot more poignant and still been short. I feel like with this is like they kind of took exactly what was in the short story and they didn't really expand on it any. And sometimes that's a good thing, not to mess with what's already written. But sometimes with film, you kind of have to develop some more of the emotion, depending on the nature of the short story. I've never read it, so I wonder if maybe that it was one of those things where it was fine in the short story, but for a visual medium, they just needed to expand on a couple
I didn't
things.
like the way or the manner that he gets deported, but I did think that was necessary because
I
it was
agree.
bringing him back to where Herschel came from.
Yes.
Right.
It was the only way Liam was ever going to see what his grandfather or great
His
grandfather
name
went
is
through to
Ben,
get them
by the
there.
way. You keep calling him Liam.
I thought his name was Liam.
The
No,
credits
it's Ben-
say, yeah,
Ben Greenbaum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Liam
Oh.
was his father.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But he said,
I didn't want to correct you.
Yeah, I'm
but I
sorry.
didn't want you to
Yeah,
keep
I don't know
making
why
the
I
same
kept thinking his
mistake
name was
either.
Liam.
Well, it was funny because I remembered Herschel, but then I kept thinking, yeah, I totally forgot Liam.
I thought
Like
that was his name.
I was
That's
sitting there
right.
thinking,
You're,
like,
you're right though. Yeah.
You pulled
But
a name from the movie.
to bring him to that country to see the dirt that his great grandfather grew up in and worked so hard to escape so that his family could be raised in America, a land of freedom and success. And I thought that was what it needed for him. But then also the whole boop bop or whatever it is, that whole moment was what was necessary to turn Herschel around to see, well, this guy isn't just lazy or so self-conscious. Like I felt like at the beginning of the movie, I was just like, the contrast between the two, Herschel's just like, I'm going to go and I'm going to make pickle and I'm going to make big success.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it's like, yeah, he's got balls, like he's got confidence, backbone to do
Yeah.
what he wants to do.
Yes.
Then you see the other guy just sitting there at his desk and he's like, I don't know. And he's like, just go ahead and send it to him. And he's like, oh, no, it's not ready. It's not ready.
Right.
He had no confidence in himself.
Right.
And later on, you see why, but I felt like at the beginning of the movie, I was just
And
like,
in all
well, I like
honesty,
Herschel a lot better.
if they had worked together from the beginning, they might have accomplished something
Right.
major, and they
See,
still
and,
may.
and that's
Yeah.
kind of where I wish the story would have taken a turn. I do know they kind of come back to that.
Yeah.
But I wish it would have seen I could have seen what was a majority of the movie been like a montage of them
Yeah.
trying to get a comeuppance on
Well, you take
one or the other.
Herschel's drive and his ethic and Ben's modern know-how and everything, and they would have been
Exactly.
a formidable
Well, and
force.
again, I think to pay respect to the fact that yes, while definitely new age people need this generation needs a touch of respect for the traditions that laid before. I think also it's to respect to the generation that also can create and think outside of the box.
Oh, yeah.
And still touch have that touch of because even to the point that Herschel just says one thing to him. And it's one, moment of rejection for Ben, and now all of a sudden he's like completely like the last 5 years of his life are a waste. And it's like it shows you that he still had a lot riding on everything that was going for him.
Yeah.
But yet, because there was still this disconnect of what his purpose was and the driven, the drive behind it, that kind of ultimately failed him.
Yeah.
And I think that is the good tie between, again, those old values versus those new values. And I think
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just think
thought you
that
were done.
could have been done a lot better. And I haven't really given my score yet, and that's probably annoying, but I liked it. It just was not something enough for me to pull at my heartstrings as much as I wanted it to or hoped it would.
Yeah.
So I'm settling on 2.5.
Oh, okay.
Didn't hate it by any means. I just wanted more from it.
Yeah.
But Sean,
I was
you
just
were
getting
saying-
ready to say, I think one of the things that makes our reviews and us having different opinions is almost always comes down to what a movie made you feel.
Yeah.
And I will say, and I'll just share this because it was one of the reasons I will say, yes, it gave me kind of a biased opinion towards the film, was there was a scene in the movie where he's looking around in Ben's apartment. I got the name right that time. and he sees the picture of David Bowie, and he's just like,
Oh,
"Is
I
that
love
just-"
that.
Well, it's a comedic moment, but then later he says, "You don't have one single picture of your
Yes.
family on your walls."
Yeah.
And
I thought that was a
it
great
really
moment.
it hit me, and it was weird because I walked down into the basement where our other refrigerator is to grab a soda. And my mom had when they moved to Alabama, they gave me a huge Rubbermaid storage container full of pictures of my grandfather and my grandmother. They had extra pictures, and she just put them in a big box and said, "Here, this is some stuff you can have." And so I go downstairs to get a Coke, and I see that box, and my grandfather's picture, a huge 8x11, is right there staring at me.
Yeah.
And it made me I stopped, and I
Yeah.
realized I don't have one single picture of my family other than my kids anywhere in my house, like on my walls.
Yeah.
And it kind of hit me hard because it was like that lesson of not having the memories visible so that you can recount them and
Yeah.
and relive them, And it hit me hard, and I was like in the basement popping the top on my Coke and tearing up because I'm just like I feel just as guilty as Ben did.
Yeah.
When you can see his face because he realizes, I probably should, but maybe those memories were bad or whatever because his parent, I'm not gonna give it away, but still it hit me emotionally, and that was one of the things that really like stuck with me
Yes.
from the film.
And that's what
And
I felt
that's-
like it was trying to do. I felt like the film, like for you, I'm glad it had that feeling. And
Right,
had-
it delivered
It
differently for
delivered well,
everybody,
but I
yeah.
also think too, it's like it was that moment for me, and so early in the film, I was kind of glad they kind of rushed through the whole, pickle brine part because I was like, that was
Yeah.
such a small moment
Yeah.
for what the rest of the movie really was supposed to be about.
Yeah.
And I was glad they did that, but for that one moment of very poignant, in the apartment for the first time, and really, bringing attention to, are you ashamed of us? It was kind of this.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
it was a very hurt kind of like Herschel was doing it in more of a questioning of like, why don't you care about what came before you?
Yeah.
And that was the part that I was intrigued at that moment because I was like, okay, this is gonna do something. Like this movie has a story to tell, and this is where it's gonna take that leap for me. And unfortunately, I just felt like the rest of the film
Lost
didn't
it.
compare to that moment.
Okay.
It didn't build on
Yeah.
that moment.
It definitely had very strong and powerful themes, and I loved the themes that it was trying to showcase. I just felt like
just didn't execute
yeah,
them.
I just wish it had
Yeah.
been a little bit more powerful because they're very important themes. The themes about family, religion, tradition, all of that
Absolutely.
are very things that you don't even that modern day people do take for granted. They don't really harken back
Hold
to a lot
dear.
of that stuff, and to see this film come out in a modern day and say these things are still important, and even make some social commentary jabs
Yes,
that
I
I was
love
Yes.
that too.
Yeah.
I was the whole cancel culture
Oh, there
and
was
all of
a
that.
lot of
there were things that I
political
was like,
incorrectness and
yeah,
Yeah,
I was
I
sitting
mean-
here like, I'm surprised that they're actually poking fun at these things
Yeah.
because normally Hollywood
That's
would be like,
yeah.
normally Hollywood would be like, no, these are important, and the fact that they actually made fun of the fact that Herschel could
he
get
knew
on Twitter.
exactly how to
Yeah,
ruin him.
yeah.
And it
It's
was
like-
literally
Yeah.
to get him on
'Cause
Twitter,
he
and
knew
no,
that
he wouldn't have a
because-
filter.
Because
And I'm
Herschel
like, exactly.
didn't know better. Like, he literally, he's from a different time and had no clue.
Which is so funny because it's like he's proving the point of what Twitter should exist for.
Yeah.
Yet
Yeah.
it's totally arbitrary because it's like, no, Twitter doesn't stand for freedom of speech.
No,
it's
not
like,
at
no,
all.
this is the platform where you go to get like completely
Yes.
demolished.
Yeah.
So I was very
I love
impressed
that.
by those things.
Yeah.
I was like, there is a lot of smart things in this film and a lot of really good things in the film. I just wanted a little bit more raw
Meat.
emotion. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
Yeah.
But there you go. A little bit divided.
No.
Overall, I think it's all something that, it's definitely worth a watch.
You should
I don't
watch
think
it
any one
so
of
that
us.
you can form your own opinion.
And then
And
Absolutely.
it would probably be completely different than ours.
It probably would be. But you know what they could do then?
What?
Is they can email us.
Oh
you
my-
know?
again?
Or hell, comment on our
Yeah.
live feed.
Yes.
Heck,
Yeah, comment.
throw your opinions of the movie in there. Or
Mm.
you know what? We need to do a better job of, I think, announcing the movie we're gonna review next week.
Okay.
I think we can go ahead and say what it is.
Let's just do that.
You know what? We thought about it during the review of this week.
I thought we did say American Pickle last week.
We did.
Yeah.
We did. But so we've been keeping up
We
a
need
good
to do
trend.
it again.
But Keith, what movie would that be?
I don't even remember what the name of it is.
It's
I knew he
the
wasn't-
devil all the time.
The Devil All the Time.
The Devil
Thank
All the
you.
Time.
I knew it had the word devil in there, and I knew like what it was on Netflix, but I didn't know the exact
It's
title.
funny because it's like that movie that we reviewed, that terrible Netflix movie from way back. It was like
I don't remember
The
that.
Last Thing He Wanted, I think.
oh,
was
the
it.
last thing he ever wanted.
Yeah,
That's
that
it.
one.
I
Oh,
could
God.
never remember the
I
name of
forget
it
that
because
name
it
of
was
that
so
movie.
terrible.
Yeah.
The Devil All the Time, though, I'm really interested in.
I am
Even though
too.
I couldn't remember the name, I do remember seeing the trailer and
It's got
seeing
Tom Holland in
Tom
it.
Holland.
So it does
Yeah.
look interesting.
Well, it has a couple of different people, and again, none of them who I could think of right off the bat. What's the name of the actor who was in Chappaquiddick? He's in it.
Oh, you're talking about the guy who plays Kennedy?
Yes, he's not
I-
old. You said
Oh,
No,
from
old-
Planet of the
older
Apes.
guy. He's
in
older
Planet
than
of the
Tom
Apes.
Holland.
What's that
Planet of
guy's
the
name?
Yeah, he's in it.
Oh, he was also in Zero Dark 30.
we just don't know his name.
Okay,
He's
well,
a great actor.
He is. He is a good actor. We just don't know his name.
He plays the CIA guy in Zero
Yeah,
Dark 30.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
You know what? While you look him up,
I'm gonna look him
I
up.
think we can go ahead and roll our
Absolutely.
headline intro. So let's get into our headlines this week. Meow. Headlines. That's right. Bringing it to you. Did y'all find
Robert Pattinson's in it.
Yeah.
That's one
it? Oh,
name.
I was like, that ain't
Robert
him.
Pattinson, Bill Skarsgård, Sebastian Stan. I knew it had a lot of
Damn,
big
Bill
name.
Skarsgård.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah,
big name
cool.
actors in it. Now I'm gonna pull this up. I swear I saw him in the trailer, or maybe I'm just crazy.
Who else was it? Oh, who was the other one?
I have to pull up the full.
Robert
cast.
Sebastian
Pattinson?
Stan, Robert Pattinson.
Man, Batman's in
It's
it.
got
Jason
Winter-
Clark. That's
Jason
him.
Clark. yeah.
Jason Clark.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Haley Bennett.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's quite a few. Like
Yep.
when I saw the trailer, it's like, wow, there's a nice cast in this, and the movie looks good. So
Yep.
Yeah, true.
this could be a hit for Netflix. We'll see.
We shall see, because I'll tell you right now, I was this close to canceling, but I'm just saying.
Netflix is,
You know, well,
everybody's.
I was never
Now that
jumping.
they got Cobra Kai, I'm back on
Yeah.
board with
I
them.
know exactly. and I
Everybody's
still need. I'm
talking
almost
about
done with
how-
that. I got to finish
Oh yeah,
season
I haven't
2.
started.
but, you
I need to
know.
watch it, but I have seen a lot of people getting mad at how many things Netflix is canceling now.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's funny because the reason why I brought that up jokingly was about the the whole cuties controversy.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But then it tied into the fact that somebody, I watched some commentary on YouTube, and he was just like, "Oh, so we can get rid of the Dark Crystal, but we're going to keep cuties."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's kind of a
I'm-
fair point.
I'm still
It's
bitter
just
about
like,
the Dark Crystal.
Yeah, I know.
It was a massive success. I can't get my mind behind why.
well,
they
here's the
would-
thing: we don't know
How
it
much
was
it cost
wa-
to produce.
Well,
yeah.
and we also don't. It was a massive success critically and with fans, but we don't know
if they made any money,
if
off
they
of
made
it.
any money and
Yeah.
how many people that drew in.
Yeah.
We know it was a good, faithful adaptation of or continuation of the series.
Yep.
We don't know how
but
many viewers.
We really
they
don't know
had.
how successful it was.
And even if they had a lot of viewers, I know by the nature of them using like practical effects and puppetry, it costs a lot to produce. So
Right.
we don't know all that. But Henson Company did say they're shopping it around other services and
So
networks.
they're not ready to quit.
So they're not ready to quit yet.
Yeah.
good.
The latest, again, just a rumor, but the latest rumor I saw was with Amazon, and I think that would be a good fit if that is true or
that
comes
would be
true.
actually
So-
amazing because
Yeah.
honestly, we need some more love from Amazon. And-
Hey, we're gonna get Lord of the Rings pretty
yeah,
soon.
that's what I'm saying.
I mean, Amazon's had some. Honestly, I've found more original series on Amazon I like now than Netflix.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I like the fact that kind of what I used to say way back in the day was I wanted more from Netflix, but now because they're giving me so much,
They're giving us so much more, and a lot of it's not worth it.
yeah, and it's like so much is kind of like let's just throw it at the wall, see what sticks. And at least with Amazon and these other streaming services, I mean HBO Max, we're still
HBO,
waiting.
yeah.
Oh gosh, what's the other big one?
Apple Plus?
Apple
Not-
TV
Apple-
Plus is
Hulu?
not really. No,
Hulu's the only big
Hulu.
one.
I was thinking of Hulu, and it's like you're seeing them with a little bit smaller amounts of content.
Hulu's
but-
not
Yep.
been making huge moves, but Amazon's definitely at that place Netflix used to be, where they're not releasing like a whole lot of series, but the
it's
ones
quality.
the ones they
Quality
do
over
release
quantity,
are
yeah.
Absolutely.
great.
Yep.
So
But you know what also is sad?
mm.
What also didn't do too well?
yeah,
I don't want to admit it. Well, here's the thing. It did well globally,
yeah,
but it didn't do well in the pandemic-stricken U.S. that's still shut
And-
down.
and there's-
okay?
there's
That's
a
all
lot
I
of
can say.
there's a lot of factors for that outside of the movie itself.
That's
So,
right.
we should probably tell people what we're talking about, and that's
True.
Tenet.
Tenet, the box
Again.
office slump. We wanted it to be a blockbuster, and we even had a headline a few weeks ago saying the blockbuster was back.
Yep.
It did fantastic, and it did.
It did its opening
Worldwide.
weekend.
An opening weekend.
Yeah.
It has slipped ever so much.
Yeah.
I mean, quite a bit. And dropping almost 60% from week to week. And now even in its second week, it's looking like it's going to have to make overall $400 to $500 million just to break even with domestic
Gosh.
and worldwide totals combined.
Wow.
And that's making studios rethink releasing any movies right now.
Well, and yeah, exactly. And that's really what's kind of happened overall is we've seen now several movies being pushed back. Obviously, the latest was Wonder Woman getting pushed back from its October release to
now
the
they're
end of the
talking
year.
about
Now
Bond.
maybe
Yeah.
both. They're not only just talking about No Time to Die and Wonder Woman being pushed back from where they're already at, but just being pushed back to next year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is kind of incredible considering that Tenet, of course, the significant thing here was that it was supposed to be the savior. Supposed to come back. We touted it. We thought Nolan's name was going to be enough to bring back people to the theaters. And truthfully, I think it could have been. But even after our review, I don't think it's any surprise why it's not. It's not an Inception. It's not an Interstellar. It truly is just, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
It's worth seeing, but it is by no means
But-
an absolute fantastic film.
But opening weekend when we went to see it, there was nobody there.
Yeah.
I mean, even before word of mouth got out that the movie wasn't his best, it's still there wasn't anybody. We were the only three people in the theater
Yeah.
almost. I mean, there was like three other people.
But they were they were satisfied with what it made opening weekend.
Yeah.
So the problem is, one, I mean, you still have massive restrictions on theaters.
Yeah, it's
Not-
you still have your major cities
Yeah,
closed.
yeah.
New
Yeah.
York and California are still locked
Yes.
down. So you don't even have L.A. and New York
Yep.
included in that total. They can't go see any movies.
no one's going to see movies there. There are people that are still afraid to go out to the theater. I mean, you have to factor in that too. I mean, we're willing to go, but there are those who aren't. And then, of course, theaters can't, they're at 50% capacity anyway, so you can't have more than that in one showing.
it's really funny because
So-
originally they wanted to be 80% by November.
Yeah.
And I just don't see it happening.
I don't either. Well, I could see them wanting that capacity. The problem is I don't see the amount of people rushing to fill that 80%.
Yeah, but I mean, if they
'Cause
don't
that's the
think,
thing,
if
I
they
don't
don't
think
think they're
they'll-
going to have that capacity, then they're not going to staff the buildings with enough
Well,
people
yeah,
to.
we saw that first.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Well, if
Yeah.
the studios don't believe that they'll have that capacity, they're not going to be willing to release their major films.
And that's what I think is the telltale sign of this film, and tragically it doing poorly, was, again, it's funny how worldwide, and as restrictions have lifted and as people have gone back to the theaters and businesses have opened back up, it's funny to see that most of this film has been a success overseas, but when it comes to domestically, it's done very poorly, and it really has. I mean, it's allowed others to see the performance and say, okay, no, obviously Americans are not ready to go back to the theater, and the fact is I still praise Nolan and the studios for the valiant effort of releasing it in theaters.
Yeah.
Especially because that was the way we even wanted it as fans of the theaters. But unfortunately, I think it being the first one out of the gate and it unfortunately not being the massive, huge hit that we expected it to be, and to be another Nolan masterpiece,
I didn't think that it could. I guess it just didn't bring enough to the table for people to still say, okay, yeah, this is worth going out and seeing. And then, oh, wait, 2 weeks later, we've got another great movie that's coming out. Oh, 2 weeks later, even though it's staggered, we've still got this whole trail of movies behind it. And let's keep it up. But no, unfortunately, it's allowed the studios to say, okay, even in question is Dune. Dune's coming out in December, but they're now saying, well, that may not happen.
Right.
So it's literally, if the rest of the major box office releases don't come out this year, you've had one major release.
That's it.
This entire year. Yep.
Unhinged, I wouldn't really consider a major release. But,
No.
But I mean, all of this too.
You
I was
mean
just looking
Bloodshot
at the
right before
oh,
theaters went down. That's not.
I mean,
I
best
was looking
picture
at
nominee.
the list of films that have been pushed back, and Black Widow was pushed back to November, but that's one that now they're thinking about doing VOD just because they're not going to recoup in theaters.
Yes.
So I mean,
And
which I don't
after
mind
the
but-
massive success of Mulan, that's the other thing
Yeah.
that we've got to talk about. The other problem is not just the box office slump, but the fact that Mulan itself has been a huge hit. Yeah. We knew. I don't want to say we knew. We alluded to the fact that we thought.
I knew that people were going to pay $30 for that.
Just
that
to
thing.
shut the kids up. Just to give
It's
them,
not even a kids movie.
It's not.
It's not.
But the fact is they did it.
And I don't understand. Disney keeps getting away with it because people keep paying them for these awful remakes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's like every time someone hears Disney's remaking a classic animated film, they pay for it. And a lot of people actually do like them. And I'm baffled because
I am too.
Aladdin was terrible.
Yes, one was
Mulan
terrible.
Aladdin was like a soap opera.
boring. Mulan was
it really
terrible
was.
soap opera.
Lion King was just a carbon copy of the original. Dumbo was terrible.
Oh yeah,
Dumbo.
I think that's
Lady
by
and the
far
Tramp was terrible.
Well,
Dumbo
Lady
is
and
by-
the Tramp is the worst.
I don't know.
I
Dumbo,
haven't seen it. Dumbo's awful. There's only one moment in
know,
Dumbo,
it is
the
a
entire movie that I like.
It is a toss-up between the two. I'll be honest.
Okay, I haven't seen Lady and the
They're
Tramp.
both terrible.
But they're both awful.
Yes.
Lady and the
I
Tramp.
mean, I'll take your word for it.
I want to say Lady and the Tramp's narrative's better because it follows the original narrative, but the CGI is terrible. The dogs look awful. I don't know.
I'm gonna be honest with you. The movie that they put only on Disney Plus, the Ivan the Great, or
Oh,
whatever,
yeah, with
that movie
Bryan
was better
Cranston.
than any of the Disney remakes I've seen so far.
Oh.
that's
It
them
doesn't-
sticking to something. Well, it's not. It's not technically original.
Is that Willem
'cause it's
Dafoe?
based- no,
That's
no,
not
no. It's
Willem
Bryan
Dafoe.
Cranston.
Bryan Cranston.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And a monkey. I mean, a gorilla. Sorry.
Do the
but I mean,
animals talk?
yes.
Okay, I thought they
Sam and
Oh,
Sam.
okay.
Sam Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell does the voice of Ivan, and it's
well,
fantastic.
I'm going to watch this
And
now.
Danny DeVito does a little dog. I mean, it's
Okay.
really, it really
It
is.
is.
Done deal.
I'm
It
so-
really is.
Bryan
It's not a bad
Cranston-
movie.
Dr. Doolittle.
It's not a bad movie. Doctor Doolittle was terrible.
Yeah, it
that
was
was
awful.
terrible.
Of course
Horrible
it was.
movie.
All I know is you said Bryan Cranston, Sam Rockwell, and Danny DeVito.
The voice
That's-
acting,
that's
a trio
it
the
right
voice
there.
acting, and the animation is unbelievable.
Well, here's the thing about with Mulan. As much as we trashed it last week in our review, and I'd stand by that 100%.
Yeah.
The fact is Disney was smart in calling the shot early. They were willing to let Tenet go out and be, the one to take the first hit.
Yeah.
And I think they were willing to do an in tandem, on demand and in theatrical release, and they ultimately ended up with just doing video on demand, and it paid off.
Well, Mulan
The
did
30
have limited theatrical
Right,
release,
it did, but
it not-
ultimately it
yeah.
was.
I was just wondering what your guys' thoughts are on would have Mulan have drawn more people to the theater than Tenet?
No,
I don't think so.
I think Disney knew that. I think Disney saw the writing on the wall. They weren't willing to take the gamble. And ultimately, I think what is most disappointing and what I'd be very interested in seeing is, I think the question now that Warner Brothers has to be asking is, should we have, even though Nolan would have been upset, should we have released Tenet video on demand? Because if we did, would it have done the same? Because we have now
What's
had
to stop them from doing it now?
but that may be what happens. Even though apparently they're standing by their word and they're saying no, we're going to stick with Tenet throughout its full theatrical
I think Tenet
release.
might be one where, because Nolan has worked with Warner Brothers to release all of his films, they'd rather, in this scenario, keep Nolan happy so
Yeah.
that he keeps working with them, even if they have to take the hit on this one, because they have other releases
Well,
coming.
yeah.
I
and
mean,
of course,
Wonder
I
Woman,
was going to say, and it's
is gonna be
unprecedented.
massive, yeah.
But that was part of it. Part of Tenet, and the fact that it didn't do so well was the reason why they pushed Wonder Woman.
Oh, yeah.
back. And the reason why they said, all right, not this year.
Now,
It's at the end of the year, but I think
Here's
it'll get
my
pushed
question,
back.
because Right now, they're happy to just keep pushing things back. Whereas you look at Disney, who now has the success with Mulan's model, and they're considering, do we push Black Widow back, or do we do the same and give it a premium Disney Plus release?
Right.
And my question is,
If they've seen a hit now,
yeah, and they see a hit, it might work. And Warner Brothers could do the same if they wanted to. Do they keep pushing Wonder Woman back, or do they say, maybe we could go the Disney route? They own HBO Max. We could release Wonder Woman at a premium price. So it is interesting to see how these things are evolving in a world where you can't really go to the theater. And it's sad because no one wants the theaters to fail, but at this point they're limping on. They're struggling, and the more months go by without any major releases, the more and more likely it is that theaters have to start shutting doors.
Well, and not only that, but the more these production studios have to release their film. They have to make money. And the fact is if they're, regardless of even just pushing the schedules back, and you can see the production studios are trying to help the theaters. Whether it was the groundbreaking deal that, that was at AMC, or not AMC, I'm trying to think of the major...
Are you talking about the Universal AMC deal?
It was AMC.
Yeah.
Okay, the Universal AMC
Yeah,
deal.
it was after they fought back and forth.
Exactly. That's why I'm so questioning of it, because
Yeah.
I'm like, AMC wouldn't do that. But it's funny because even after a monumental deal like that, it's like you can tell that production companies do not want theaters to go under. They're looking forward to when theaters are back at full capacity, when everybody's back for the major blockbusters, and they want the theaters to they want them to succeed. The problem, though, is in this current climate and for the unforeseeable future, when you have states like California and New York who have no hope of opening up the rest of this year, it's like you're pretty much talking about huge populous cities completely dead in the water when it comes to the box office.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, what other route do you have to take then to say we have to release them somehow to make money? And if video on demand is popular and people are proving that they're paying $30 premium prices just to rent a film.
Well, especially when your major blockbuster films are franchise films, extremely in the case of Marvel, who is very meticulous on how they schedule their releases because they have this whole cinematic universe. There's only so many times because they push Black Widow back, then they have to push every movie after that back.
Yes, exactly.
In order
this whole year's been pushing everything
to
back.
Create that narrative.
Yeah.
So every film that Marvel's making goes back when one goes back. So it gets to a point where they say, can we keep pushing our entire slate back, or do we start releasing on demand?
Right.
Same thing with any franchise film, And others aren't as bad because they aren't
even
as
apart from
meticulous as Marvel,
apart from franchise films, I think you're right. It's interesting because you look at, are you going to have No Time to Die come out at the same time that the next Mission Impossible does?
Yeah, they don't want that.
No.
They don't want the
You're not going to
competition.
have two huge franchises competing with each other in the same month. And you're probably not going to have most production studios say, well, we're going to have one come out this month and the next month and then the month after that, because they know sometimes people don't have the expendable income to do that, especially after a huge pandemic.
Yeah.
And so it's like they're going to play it smart by trying to say, well, maybe $30 is, it's a steep price, but for a family of four, that's way cheaper than going out to the theater. They're willing to pay for it at home, so let's give them what they want. And
The right movie, I would have paid $30, but Mulan's not a movie I was ever going to pay for
Well,
my
and
kids to
but
watch.
we even said it. We said it with Tenet. We wanted to watch it in IMAX, and we were gonna go in IMAX even if they had released it on video on demand. But the studio came out and said they never even put it on the table. Nolan, of course, we know how big he is for the theatrical release.
Yes.
And supporting theaters, and we're all for that. But would it have been smart, looking at it now, to see Tenet take the bullet the way it did? Do you think if Tenet would have been a bigger film or a better film, if it would have been a better film, do you think it would have allowed the theaters to come roaring back? Or would it have just been better to say, nope, 2020 is a lost cause, there's no hope?
I think if it had been better, we wouldn't have seen as drastic a drop from opening weekend, but I still don't think it would have been enough to save theaters or to convince studios not to postpone releases. I don't think there was really any scenario where it was going to be that massive looking at all the restrictions that are still in place.
Yep.
I think going in before theaters opened back up and Tenet was announced as being the first major release, I had this perception that the restrictions weren't going to be as bad as they were because theaters were kind of touting, oh, we're doing everything possible.
Yeah.
But then when you look at and see just how tied their hands really are in certain matters,
I
you're
almost
like,
wonder if it was less a matter of word of mouth about the movie and more a matter of word of mouth about how bad their theater experience was.
True. Could have been that
when
too.
you go in and it's like pulling teeth just to get butter for your freaking popcorn. Like I mean, I'm serious. Like
Well,
that
and
that turns you off.
Cleanliness
from the theater.
wasn't
and
top-notch
exactly
either.
when you're coming thinking that you're going to come out of your home and that everything's going to be sterilized and everything's going to be clean and safe for you to take your family to
And
go to
it's
the theater,
not
and it's
clean?
not. Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't make you want to go back.
when there's only 10 people in line and it still takes a half hour to get through the line,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
kind of a problem.
Yeah. I mean, no doubt, and we knew there was going to be some opening woes, but we all thought because there had been plenty of months of shutdown,
Yep.
there was a chance for them to have fully prepared for a reopening. And especially with such a huge movie like Tenet, I think people were excited to get back, and I think it showed opening weekend, but unfortunately I think the sustainability after the fact is what the theaters weren't ready for, nor the box office. I really do think that all these other major releases being pushed back even further is just simply because they know that people are not willing to go back to the theaters yet.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just a cultural thing. Maybe it is still people who are on edge about getting out and about. Maybe it is a convenience factor like we've always talked about. And the fact is we saw it early on this year with Trolls, World Tour, when it opened up, and it was a huge hit because, again, we thought, it's a kid's movie. Mulan still in the family category. It is these other films that are a little bit more particular about their audience. Can they succeed in a video-on-demand format? And the longer that theaters don't attract this foot traffic through, I think we're going to be seeing that question answered, and I think production companies are going to go that route, unfortunately.
The one
they're
that-
going to have to, yeah. No, go ahead.
The one that surprised me, and I know it's not going to be like a big hit in the box office, but when they come out and said that Greenland was indefinitely postponed, like they don't have a date, that makes me fearful because they know this movie is gonna. They know normally it would make its money back and then some, but it's not going to be a huge cash grab.
Yeah, it's
And
another Roland Emmerich,
right, that's
even
what
though
I'm
it's
just
not
saying.
directed by him.
But it's another one. Yeah, it's kind of along those lines. I think
disaster
they
flicks.
know that it's like, man, if we do it now, we're not going to recoup what we spent on this movie. So they're pushing it back indefinitely, and that makes me scared because I feel like other production companies may end up doing the same. They might not even set a date. They might just say indefinitely.
Yeah.
And I hate that because I think there's so many other movies coming out like The Batman and Top Gun and some of these other movies that we really want to see that, are going to get scared as well. And that was Greenland when I'm just like, man, that movie wasn't expected to make money anyway.
I think the
Yeah.
difference
and they're
is
worried about losing money.
Well,
so.
I think the difference is because they know that one wasn't going to be a major success, they're not worried. They don't want to release it now and lose money, so they're fine with putting that indefinitely. I think we'll see.
Or another one that could easily end up on video on demand.
Yes. Well, I
Yeah.
think that's
'Cause
what
I
I'm saying.
could see somebody buying that up or saying,
Absolutely.
hey, yeah, we'll release it.
I wanna see
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna
my
get it.
point is, though, I do think with the huge releases like Wonder Woman, Black Widow, Top Gun, I don't think studios are going to put those out, like postpone them indefinitely. I think they're going to be more decisive with those because they know they can make money and they don't want to just sit on them for so long. So either they're going to make the decision to put them in theaters or they're going to make the decision, no, we've sat on it long enough. Let's put it VOD. Because absolutely, Black Widow and Wonder Woman, those movies, if they put them VOD, people are going to pay to rent.
Yeah.
them.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and that's what I kind of think Disney Plus was testing the waters with
Mulan,
Mulan.
absolutely.
And now that they know they have their answer as a success,
Yep.
I have no doubt Black Widow is going to go it's going to suffer that same fate. And the reason is because it's not really suffering. It's like it's shown and proven to be a success.
oh, yeah, and
and
here's
even
the
though
thing.
it's a major Marvel movie to be released, think about it. If they know that people are going to be tuning in specifically to see that film and they're going to make their money back, what's to keep them?
Here-
What's to
here's
keep
the
them
thing.
from doing it?
Right.
I'm not going to pay for it because I'll get a screener.
That's
But
right. That's true.
if I didn't have access to that, though, I absolutely would pay to see
Yep.
Black Widow because I love Marvel.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And they're going to make their money even without my $30 anyways. But that's the thing is that they can do it and probably will do it, and they will definitely make money off of it. And I will definitely watch it at home on my TV with my surround sound because I want to see it. But I'll be disappointed because while I'm excited to still see it, and I have a decent enough home theater system that it's not going to be, shabby by any means, I would still be much happier seeing a Marvel release in IMAX.
There's the Jew in you using a shabby.
Not too shabby.
thing.
Not too shabby. But yeah, I mean, I would just be like I said, I'll be happy to watch it at home, but I would be much happier if I could see it in IMAX.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the unfortunate part about this entire story is the fact that there is no hope for the foreseeable future right now for this year of the box office. There isn't.
That's just all around. Not just the box office. There's no hope.
There's no hope.
There's no hope.
Give up now. Give up now. We don't need the.
2020.
You know what? And I think this is going to go right into our Vices segment because
no hope.
there is no hope. And if you're following the stories in the headlines, and in more than just our headlines these days, there's no hope. So let's roll it. Let's get on to our Vices segment. It's on you.
I didn't know if you kept it until the very end.
I mean, if I see you doing something, I have to put it on
if
you.
you make a move, he's gonna.
Yeah,
turn
I'm
it to you.
gonna put it on there.
I was waiting for the Vices. Oh, there we go. I was waiting. I just, I do love all our intros.
You do like our
Yes.
intros? They're kind of catchy.
I like
kinda-
all of them until you punch the wrong button and something
Hey,
pops
hey,
up
hey!
right inside
We
the
got it
man,
right tonight.
I was gonna say
So
so
far.
far we've got it right, and they got 10 more minutes to screw it up. So I'm gonna find a way to do it.
So we've
What's our
talked
segment?
about news feeds and hope. What is
There
the
is no
Vices
hope.
segment?
That was the Vices segment. There is no hope?
Huh.
There is no fate but what we make.
That's right.
Yeah, that is true.
So the Vices topic tonight
Staying in the know.
is talking about staying in the know. The fact is in this wonderful world of 2020 and all the crap that's happened to us this year, it's been one thing after the another.
After the
New
nother.
words
after
aplenty.
the nother.
That's right. It's the nothing, okay?
Nothing.
But no, the fact is that every day you pop out of bed, flip through your news feed on Facebook, Twitter, turn on the news. There's always something is amiss. Obviously the stars are not aligned. Shit's happening everywhere. Cats and dogs sleeping together. Mass chaos.
It's
Oh,
mass
that's it.
hysteria.
I'd screw it up.
Yeah,
See? But the fact is yes, it's kind of a vice. I think
I would say
in this day and age,
even
to just
before-
be at your fingertips.
Even before the chaos that was 2020,
Yeah.
I think people are very addicted to constantly having news at your fingertips.
Yes.
Having
Not
news
just
feeds.
and not good news, bad news.
Bad news.
Yeah.
Everybody
Almost all
thrives
news
on it.
is
Oh yeah,
bad
well
news.
yeah. The only news is bad news, as Andrew Clavin would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that you can have push notifications sent straight to your phone on all of your favorite news feeds.
Oh, yeah.
So that as soon as a story is released, you immediately get it, whether it be on politics, on the latest consoles being released, on movies, anything. I mean, people have to know right away. They don't want to find out, especially when you look at the PlayStation 5 debacle. They don't want to. They don't want to.
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
They don't
Yeah.
want to find out a day later. Oh crap! I was late to pre-order because
Right.
somebody jumped the gun. They want to get that tweet
Well,
right away
but-
saying, "Hey, pre-order now."
But therein lies even just that debacle. I mean, literally in the last 2 weeks, I mean, we've had literally, the PlayStation 5, pre-order debacle, RBG dying, and now a new Supreme Court justice has thrown everything into
You
the
said it
election
best.
before
Mass
that.
hysteria.
Mass hysteria. I mean, I'm telling you, it's
Even
like
what's going on in our own city with
Yes,
Breonna
with
Taylor.
Breonna
and the
Taylor.
news about that. We're on
waiting.
edge, waiting.
Everybody,
Yes.
they locked the whole city down tonight in anticipation for a
verdict.
It's
Yeah.
crazy to think that
we're not a verdict. I don't want to say verdict. It's not a criminal case yet.
No.
Not
They're
yet.
about what
An
was going to
announcement,
happen
yes.
to the police officers.
But the fact that everybody is glued constantly to the news, and maybe things would calm down some if people did take a step back and realize that some things are out of our hands. Not saying that you shouldn't be informed, But to have yourself tuned in, because I can't do it. If I watch the news cycle 24 hours a day, I'd want to hang myself. It's so depressing.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. So it's one of those
I
things
don't
where,
blame you,
where I
yeah.
need a break. It's like, I mean, I definitely keep up to date with the news and what's going on in the world because it's important, but I definitely don't want to make it my life 24 hours.
Even if this is not just the news, but our intake of like all these articles about movies that
Yeah.
we try. That's where we find all of our headlines from, and we share them with each other throughout the week.
Yeah,
but it's
absolutely.
like, I mean, if I don't constantly check Screen Rant or somewhere like that to see what the latest
Deadline,
thing,
Hollywood
Variety, all of these
Reporter.
things, to see what the latest buzz in Hollywood is going to be, like I feel like I'm left behind.
Yeah,
like
I'm missing out.
Yeah, I'm out of the know.
Well,
Exactly. Like,
yeah.
and I have that stuff streaming to my phone constantly. I even had to like find a workaround at work so that I could be able, because our computers are on lockdown because of like medical records and stuff. I found out that you can actually access one of those RSS feed websites and it actually does work, and so that I can have that tab open,
At least
and
see the
still
headlines.
check the
Yeah.
headlines while I'm there. I can't necessarily open all the links, but I can at least read the headline and get an idea of what's going on.
It's
and
wanting
yeah,
to be that
I
first
gotta
person to know.
Yeah,
It's constantly being on the edge of I've got to be the. I mean, because I think about it too when I send you all articles or when I see something and I'm like, I wonder if they know this, and I'm instantly hitting that text button, and I'm putting.
Oh, even
in
when
the
you
red
share
ring-
stuff from where you work.
Yes.
And,
Yep.
because you're all are dropping the news first.
Yeah.
So it's like when I get that, I'm like, oh, yeah. And I'm telling people at work, I'm like, I got a buddy that works at WW whatever.
He's in the know.
And he's in the know.
Yeah,
and,
he's
yeah,
in
he
the
just
know.
said.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
And what here? I just wanted to make this one
Yeah,
point.
no, go ahead,
I
yeah.
always find it funny because we all three of us are constantly on the lookout for, especially because of the podcast Hollywood related news.
Yes.
And I do think it's funny that like one of us will find an article and send it, and then the other two will be like, "Oh yeah, we saw it." And it's funny that we'll end up seeing
The
not
same
all the time,
stuff.
but
it's
we'll
almost
sometimes
like
we
there's-
share
it's
the
a
same
competition
stuff.
too.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like I already saw that. I got to let you know that I saw
I
that.
saw that.
Because if it's like that, then I was the one that came to it first. And it
Oh,
is. It's
okay.
kind of like
I
one
see
of
what
I
those.
didn't
like-
realize we were doing that.
No,
I was
well-
just being truthful. I already read it.
That's the
But-
No, but
Yeah.
it's funny because I feel like there are some times where I sense that like, oh, did you get it first,
Maybe
or
you're-
did I?
Maybe
name
you're
it?
misreading. 'cause
I
I'm
probably
with,
am.
I'm with Sean.
Yeah,
I just
I've
want to be
never
like,
felt like it was a competition.
Yeah.
But see, like Keith has shared stuff, and then I've shared it like a half hour later,
Well,
or
I've done the same.
whatever.
Actually,
And
that was
Keith's like,
funny.
I shared that earlier, and I'm like, damn, I missed that one.
Well, there
Like,
was
'cause
one
there's
where you-
so many.
I
I've
think
done the
last
same
week
thing where
you,
shared something before, and I think like the next day I posted, and you're like, I sent that yesterday. And it's like, oh crap, I'm sorry. I
Well, it
missed
was
it.
just
Yeah, we
there
just
was
missed
something just recently that I think Sean had sent something, and literally like it was the one thing, and then the very next text was, "Oh crap! I just realized Keith sent that like 2 hours ago." Because it was like
Yeah.
a link, but it didn't show what it was to or the
Yeah.
headline.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, okay, that's why it didn't
Yeah,
show
a
up.
lot of the times I don't have time to read the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'll see the headline and just say, "Oh man, here, check this out."
Yeah.
And read it, and then I'll read it later. But chances are we've already shared it with
but
each other.
It's so fascinating to me, especially like I find that I go through waves because kind of like you said, Keith, and you want to almost like if you just constantly indulge yourself on a wave and a barrage of news, it's like it becomes overwhelming, and you get exhausted
Well,
from just
it's-
feeling
it's
like
the negativity. And some people
Yes, it
feed off
is.
that
Oh, yeah.
negativity, but I'm like, I can't do it.
well, it's the
man.
negativity, and I think it's also it's cumbersome, or it's you feel like I mean you're constantly you don't have control over everything in the world.
No.
And I think the moment that you just feel like there's this weight of the world on your shoulders, and all of this news is just adding to it, and yet you only have so much control over your life, and that's why I feel like it is sometimes such a breath of fresh air to just resist listening to what others are saying is important and say, well, you know what, I can't fully worry about that right now. I got to worry about what's going on in my life.
Yeah.
And as long as I take care of myself first and my family and my friends and my loved ones, as long as that's, those affairs are in order, then I don't have anything to worry about.
Well,
There's
for
things I
me-
cannot control that are outside
Yeah,
of my
absolutely.
outside of my
For
control.
me, and I think that's the difference between some people, is that there's, like I said, there's people that feed off negativity for sure, but there's people who are constantly in tune with the news cycle because that is their world, and they live or die by what's going to happen or who's going to be elected because they're terrified that their whole world will change based on who wins or loses. And for me, it's like, yes, those things are important, definitely, because it does affect our lives and our government and the world we live in. But to me, I also have from a faith-based
Right.
angle. I know
Yeah.
that, like you just said, you can't control everything in the world.
Yes.
There's only one person who does control what happens in the world,
Yeah,
and that's God.
that's the one
Yeah.
thing that gives me comfort.
So yeah, for me, it's one of those things where I can't live off that negativity. It makes me sick. And when I see things that I worry about, I know, well, at the end of the day, I can't control it. So it's
Yeah.
better to let God handle it as he will, whichever way he decides, and know that I have comfort in the fact that whatever happens, God's in control. And I think that that's the difference in, for me, why I'm not so, yes, as far as like tech goes and movies go, I definitely want to be in the know.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't want to be in the know with politics.
It's just
in the
what you're
world.
interested in.
It's just that I don't have to have that 24/7 being fed to me
Right.
because it becomes too much, just too much.
Well, especially especially in I think the last 4 years, we've seen it constantly bombardment of
Much more.
I'd say longer than 4 years.
Well,
it really
I
amped
would
up in the last 4 years.
I was
going to
say, just particularly because of who our president is, I would say
Yeah.
the last 4 years have been total nonstop, like, oh no, what happened now? And it's just like this constant barrage of like, okay, we get it. Nothing new surprises me anymore, or what they consider to be new. But it is interesting because I will say I definitely do it more so in political years because, I do keep up with politics.
Oh, definitely.
But I almost become a political junkie in an election year because
You need to know who you're electing.
yeah, I want to know who I'm electing, and
Absolutely.
I am much more. I know that's when the attacks begin and constant waves of emotion or emotion and information come at you from all these different sides, and so it is kind of like, what is the narrative, what is the truth? But it's the same feeling that I think a lot of people get. Right after the election season's over, and they're like, "Thank God I don't have to see
over.
another
Yeah.
political ad."
Right.
And I think it's the same way. It's like I almost like after it's all said and done, I'm like, "Thank God I don't really have to open up the newspaper for another couple months."
Yep.
Because to me, it's like either it's hysteria or it is just like okay, not every single little thing that comes out is newsworthy.
I don't think we're going to get that same reprieve this
No.
year. No matter
No
matter
doubt.
what happens, who wins
The thing
or
is,
who
theaters
loses,
will
yeah.
open 100% after November 3rd.
True. I actually do believe that. That is kind of funny. It's a good point.
We'll see what happens, but it's just going to be one of those things where no matter who wins the election, this year has proven that nothing's over yet. And
No.
there's going to be, I guarantee you, we're not even going to know the true winner on election night.
I think Santa Claus is going to die this year. I think it's that bad.
I agree.
He's going to die.
It's terrible. Oh man.
And there's
who's
not a
next?
replacement. Once he's dead, he's dead.
No, there is a replacement.
No.
Mrs. Claus.
Oh, Klaus?
Who says?
Klaus!
But no, it's funny because it's like, for one, in this year, it's like nothing is gonna surprise me.
Right.
But I am constantly opening up my phone to be like, what's new today?
What's next?
What's next?
Yeah.
What's the next thing to go wrong?
Yeah.
And I think it's just interesting because that easily can be a vice.
Yeah.
Easily.
I
and
agree.
Not a good one by any means.
Well, this was
It's like pre-ordering a PS5 and then the day before the Xbox goes on sale, Microsoft buys Bethesda. and you're like, shit.
that's 2020.
Skyrim or Elder Scrolls 6 and,
That's
and
right.
Fallout might not be on my PlayStation.
Doom.
Oh my
Wolfenstein.
God.
I
I don't care about Wolfenstein.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm
telling
I
you,
have
man.
faith they will be, but
They better be. Or I'm gonna be
I
pissed.
I think I'm saving,
boycotting.
even though it'll be a little old. I'm saving all of the pre-order stuff and the debacle, all that multimedia.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
we'll
I,
get
but
into it.
I wanted to say it for our listeners out there. We are going to cover it.
Yep.
We obviously.
It's
I
pretty
will admit
major
we have
news,
two
so-
huge pre-orders sitting right here.
Mhm.
You all were able to get one.
Yeah.
For the PS5. Not sure if you all are planning on getting Xbox
I
But-
will, but I'm not as in a big a hurry about
to
it.
get that one.
Yeah.
But that's coming next week, so we'll talk about all that stuff and even the Bethesda. Yeah,
We gotta let it simmer.
there's just so much. There is
Yeah.
so much. But to me, I was going to say 2020 is like the PS5 pre-order in that you get it in your cart and you hit purchase and then it's sold out.
Yeah, but
That's
see,
2020.
It worked
No,
for me.
2020.
Hey, after the 20th click.
At the 20th click, it worked.
2020 is when you get it in your cart and you actually manage to check out, and then you get an email the next day saying, "We're sorry, we're
Sold out.
We
Yeah,
canceled-
that's true.
We
That's-
have to
we
cancel and
canceled your
refund
order." Yeah, that's 2020.
That absolutely is 2020.
Wow.
All right, guys. Thank you all so much for tuning in this week. As always, you can check out our live show every single Tuesday on Facebook and YouTube Live
Yeah.
at 9 p.m.
Right.
Eastern Time. That's right. You can also visit our website. Yeah, you know, redmoonproductions.com, where we have all of our past episodes on there. We have past unique weekly segments on there. We've got all of our original content on there. All of our reviews, our past reviews are on our website. Go check out redmoonproductions.com. And, of course, we'll hit it again right at the end of the show. What is it? What's our email again? Do y'all remember?
RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
I mean, there's that pause. RM podcast.
It's important.
I love it.
That's
It's
fantastic.
important.
Just
So what are we reviewing
beautiful.
next week?
One more time for those who don't listen.
Funny you should say that.
That was a jab.
The last thing he wanted. I can't remember. What is it?
The Devil All the Time.
The Devil all the time.
on
Okay.
Netflix.
We
For
need to
free.
make sure at the beginning of the show and at the end of the show, because apparently
We do.
people
Well, it's not free. You
apparently
have to have
people
Netflix.
don't watch the
Our
entire
entire show.
Yeah,
So
and I
then-
understand that.
And
really.
I do,
it's
but
boring.
but then they miss.
I understand that.
But if we only mention
I gotta
it
sit
once,
here this whole time and listen to it.
if we only mention it once, then they may miss it, and then they don't know what we're
Yeah.
reviewing, and
We're
they
gonna-
don't
we'll-
bother to go back and check.
We'll do
the
a
rest
better
of the
job.
show.
We'll do a better
Well,
job from now on.
You know what? You guys are right. We're gonna mention it at the top of the show because guess what? The devil is in the details, and the devil's all the time.
All the time.
That was terrible. All right, guys. Until next time, I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
and
Keith Cheatham.
so we will see you on Netflix.
Netflix. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that
And
works.
chill.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.